Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas, and this is another episode of my podcast, Literary Analysis. This is going to be the last podcast on Macbeth. We will some sort of talk in the end about a big issue, which will then be our next topic, and this is scene changes. This is indeed a big issue in that sense. I have announced it before. If you write screenplays or as well as general theater, for the theater, the big issue is how to structure a play, but it is as well as very important how to structure a novel, and so on and so on. So we talked about it. Structure is very imminent, very important, and so on. But the point being, and this with structures general, is that there is no real or right way. There is one way which always works, and this is when you some sort of structure your novel, your screenplay according to the hero's journey. The hero's journey is actually the dominating frame within literature. I always call it as well as the Marvel strain, because many or the comic plot structure, and this just means that many Marvel comics or DC, whatever, are structured in that way. So you can have this structure at Harry Potter. You have this structure at Batman, for example. Batman. We will talk about Batman the next week, where I have prepared a screenplay. We will use some screenplays or one screenplay and analyze it, where we will try to figure out what is a good structure and what is not. Of course, there are a lot of bad examples. It will turn out whether we will go into that or not. However, but something I have to admit as well is, well, I do not know the exact structure, or I do not know some sort of a blueprint which is a good structure. I only know about stuff like hero's journey. We will talk a little bit about that as well. So this is which has worked out pretty well in the past. You have to be always aware that our brain works a lot with recognition. This means we feel comfortable with everything we know before we have experience with and this of course leads to whether someone might watch your movie or not. So this plays indeed a vital role. So the hero's journey is not so far fetched if you can some sort of write your plot in that way. So it is indeed something which would work out, and the hero's journey, very roughly, if I want to present this, it always starts with an ideal stage. So an ideal stage would be, I don't know, so some Lord of the Rings, or if you have Batman, or even today where we will talk about a little bit of Macbeth and the structure of the play. In Macbeth, you have in the beginning some sort of a gathering storm. The play starts with those three witches, and in this conversation, which is an introduction into the play, we hear the name Macbeth as well. So it is established that Macbeth is the center, or should be the center of our focus, or is the center of our play. However, this is some sort of an introduction, but normally the hero's journey starts with that as well. So a lot of for example, think about the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings. The movie. The movie introduction was different from the book, and in the movie introduction use some sort of had a sum up as well, so which would some sort of introduce the world, introduce the scene. This becomes very important when you write science fiction, when you write fantasy. You have to give some people an understanding of the world, of what you are talking about, and this is what you see in the movie Lord of the Rings, and this is what you have in Macbeth as well. But in Macbeth, it is rather the mood of the play, this storm, and it is some sort of a gathering storm. But however, in the hero's journey, there's an ideal situation. The hero is well, or think about the Lord of the Rings, where Frodo is in his own land and he's fine and he's all doing fine, and then there is a call for the quest. He either takes it or moves away from it, or some sort of delays it. If you want to establish suspense in your novels, then you do create a hero who in a way does not want to go outside in to the world. We will see this at Batman next week, and so on. So an ideal stage, and there is some sort of a calling, but the hero declines it. But then he's forced to go on this journey, and in this journey he some sort of finds himself. This is derived from the Greeks, from the Greek mythology, where the heroes have to go through trials. Think about Oedipus, all these trials he had to go through in order to find home to Ithaca and his wife, and so on and so forth. So you have this with heroes as well. They have to understand this. They have to go through these trials, and then in the end the hero sort of gains knowledge, experiences things different, and he becomes a better person. He becomes a different person, and this is some sort of a happy ending. Or he meets a girl, he can save a girl, a society, whatever you have. So this is a very very narrow or very short summary of a hero journey. This is what we see in many movies. This is what we expect when we watch a movie. This is what feels close to us, which we understand, and which we some sort of can make out the characters, because in a hero's journey you have one central protagonist. This is in Lord of the Rings, Frodo. This is in Harry Potter, and this is in Batman, Bruce Wayne. So you know everyone, you know the place of everyone, despite those trials a hero goes through. You know in the end he will have some sort of succeed either way. There are of course some hero journeys where the hero does not succeed, but however, in all these Marvel franchises, in all those comic franchises, the hero in a way or another always succeeds, can come to an agreement, and so on. And these things work. And you have this as well as in Shakespeare's Macbeth, where things some sort of derail. It is true. So because we know Macbeth in the end gets slain. We know that in Shakespeare's Macbeth, Shakespeare in his tragedy, this grabs a vicious circle, and there is as especially is okay, but you have these elements of a hero's journey in Shakespeare as well. So in the beginning you have this storm, this gathering storm with the three witches. Then there's an introduction in to the play. This is about war. This is about treason, but it is again some sort of an ideal, ideal position, an ideal stance, because Macbeth is hailed. He's been considered as the hero who has fought against the rebels and against this Norwegian king. He's been praised, and everyone thinks of him as a great man, and then it goes on. So Macbeth seems to have it all. But then there is a calling. This calling you would then consider the prophecy of the three witches. They say to him, "You shall be king thereafter," and this then awakens something. Awakens his ambition, his dark force. He then goes, if you want, in his own mental journey through back and forth, where the fall of his predecessor becomes a warning. So this goes back and forth. These are the trials, if you want. So three is always a magical number, because three is free. The number 3 has to do a lot with Platonic philosophy, and it was derived by the Greek antiquity. So 3 or 4 play indeed a crucial role. 3 trials, and in the end, Macbeth some sort of goes through it, and kills Duncan, and this is the pinnacle of the second scene. The point is, generally, I mean, everyone immediately would see or assume, that a play as Shakespeare or whatever you have, can you use a 3-act system or some sort of what has been known since Aristotle from the antiquity, and this is that a play has a beginning, a middle part with rising tension, and if you want, the conclusion of the play, and so on. However, but like I said before, if you have only those, or this structure does not really help you. It does not help at all. And we will try to figure out what is a good way to structure a play. Again, I would lie if I would know the blue print of it. You can some sort of say, the hero's journey, it works, but it's some sort of, it gets boring as well, and it does not tell you much about how to structure the scenes in the play. You may not understand what I'm talking about or what I'm referring about, but we will come to that as well. But what I have seen, this is throughout some plays. This is what you see in movies, and next week we will I will try to show it on Batman Begins at the screenplay, that things work a lot of well with contrasts. So because you have one scene, for example, here in Macbeth, these are the 3 witches. This is the first scene, and of course, if you write a screenplay, if you write a movie, you always wanted some sort of these transitions. You want to make them work in a way. I mean, you have here in Macbeth, in the beginning, those 3 witches. This is an initiation. This some sort of sets the mood of the play. This is dark. This is some ambiguous language. You don't know what this is all about. You only hear Macbeth, the name. This is all what it turns around. But then what comes next? And this is a big question indeed. So what is the next scene? How should, or which scene should follow the other? I mean, you could, we will talk about this as well. You could some sort of say, in the first scene with the three witches, the name Macbeth is mentioned. This means that the next scene, this would mean scene 2, would be about Macbeth as well. However, the entire place is about Macbeth, so this does not really help you. And what I've discovered is, or what really makes a story work or drive the scene forward, especially if you watch movies, especially if you, as well as in many Marvel franchises or in comic franchises, what really drives the plot forward is the contrast. So that you have one scene, and then you show or narrate the story from that angle, that the next scene seems to be a contrast to the previous scene. This may not, everyone would of course disagree, because everyone would say, yeah, but you some sort of ruin the famous red line of the plot, because everyone would assume that you some sort of have to naturally, slowly and gradually grow the plot. So this would mean, I don't know, if you watch, Lord of the Rings, for example, this would mean that you have in the beginning Frodo in Auenland, and people are all nice, people are all thing, and then you slowly, gradually, these people then decide to go on a journey, and this goes on so slowly, and they make up friends, and they go and on and on. So, but this is not how things work. This has many reasons. The first reason is that you do not have just time. I mean, this is the average length of a movie is just 1.5 or even 2 or 3 hours. Of course, Lord of the Ring lasts a bit longer, but it, especially in the movie business, time is scarce. You just don't, you cannot afford, you cannot do this, that you can, that you some sort of narrate slowly and gradually a story, because you would go nowhere, or you would not some sort of conclude the story. You would not be able to conclude it. And if you some sort of create a scene, or you could some sort of say it as a mirror effect, This means that you have one scene. This is in Macbeth, the 3 witches, and then the main issue of the scene is that there is a gathering storm. This is what you would assume. This is sets the mood of the scene. But then the following scene seems to be the opposite, because it is a praise of Macbeth. They have won the war. They have won the war against the rebels. They have won the war against the Norwegian king. Macbeth is praised, and so on. This is what you would assume. Yeah, this is actually a contrast to this, and this drives the plot forward. It drives it forward fast. This is of course something you have to, which makes it more urgent, and with this contrast, with this mirror effect, you can tell a story. I would say you can convey a lot of messages to a story, or within few words. We will see this next week with Batman. So this, you always some sort of portray the contrast of it. And then in Macbeth, the second scene, this is about, there you would actually assume, yeah, the storm is over. They won the war. Macbeth is hailed and praised. King Duncan praises him, and so all are the noble men. So this is war is over. This is a contrast contrast to the first scene, but it has a lot of effects on you. And the first effect is it keeps you on the edge, because it is still a contrast. You after you have seen the first scene, you are still hooked. You sometimes expect the plot drives itself forward. So you don't have to do much, and it tells the story of the in time, or it drives the story with few words, but in a more pointful way. It's a fast development, and this is indeed something you have to have, something that's necessary. This development, this fast development in movies, but as well as in theaters, because you have to be aware people's attention may not be or people's attention wanes, people would not keep to each other, and so on. So with these small effects, with this mirror effect in the plot structure, you can actually drive the plot forward in a very good way. And then the third scene of Macbeth, this is then about this dark prophecy. This is where you sort of have, again, you go back to this initial dark storm, in this gathering cloud. There's a gathering cloud in the first scene, then the opposite people hail and praise Macbeth. He seems to have done something good. This is the introduction. The plot is about Macbeth and about no other. But then in the third scene, you have again those three witches, and they come with a dark prophecy. There's some sort of the first thing is that there's an introduction again in the scene as well. So some sort of a microstructure of every scene, which is very important. So you have these three witches talking about this fat, stingy woman. You have about this femme, and then Macbeth comes along. He's been hailed. The Thane of Cawdor, and then later he shall be king. This plays a crucial part of it. But then in the fourth scene, you have some sort of, again, this contrast, again this mirroring, because then the fourth scene of Macbeth, this is about the former Thane of Cawdor, the predecessor of Macbeth. This is some sort of a warning, if you want, where Malcolm and King Duncan talk about the former rebel and Thane of Cawdor who betrayed his king, who fought on the side of the enemy, and so on. There you have again this contrast, and this again drives the plot forward. And then in the fifth scene, you have some sort of his ambition. Macbeth's ambition comes to an end. Malcolm is being named the prince, and you have some sort of an end, and then evil spirits have to be conjured up in order to drive the plot forward. This is again you would assume, in a way, it is a back and forth. You would assume it is a dialogue. You have this gathering storm, but then the storm is over. You have this prophecy, but Macbeth in a way does not really believe in it, and the prophecy is in a way dark. This is no happy prophecy. People do not celebrate it as a blessing, because these are evil spirits who prophesize a prosperous future. So it has always some dark clouds on it. Then you but in Macbeth arises dark clouds. He wants to have something. So this is again some sort of back and forth. He has this urge. This plays into the theme of ambition, but this then comes to a warning. His predecessor, the former Thane of Gondor, was being killed, was executed. This is some stuff as well as for us as those who watch the play. This comes as a warning, but as well as some sort of a dark foreboding. This will get worse, because this is the entire play is dark, is gloomy, and then Macbeth's wife, Lady Macbeth, has to conjure up evil spirits to make it work, because her husband, the protagonist or the antagonist, if you want, or the anti-hero, this would be more correct, the anti-hero, Macbeth does not seem to be capable to go through it, so she have to conjure up evil spirits. This means that an evil deed needs to be done to some sort of break through this stalemate, or this bar which was put in front of Macbeth, because Malcolm wasn't named the successor and not him. And then in the sixth scene, this is again a switch outside. This is again the contrast to it when King Duncan and Banquo approach the castle of Macbeth. They are entirely oblivious what is going inside the castle. This is again some sort of a mirror or some sort of a contrast, where you some sort of draw out the contrasts which drive the story forward more faster, in a way more faster pace, because you have to imagine this is on the scene, or this is on the theater. Well, I don't know how this is being portrayed on. I've never actually seen Macbeth in a theater, rather in a movie. However, but the mental image of it, this is a very striking one, because there is in the castle, people are plotting the overthrow of King Duncan, his murder, but outside the castle, King Duncan some sort of praises Macbeth, is entirely oblivious to what is actually really going on. And this is again something, or this is again the theme of the play, so that you disguise your true feelings, but yet through this guys, you can tell a lot of or convey already a lot of information just with portraying it in a contrast. So this is always the contrast to the scene, and this is you have until King Duncan is killed. It is always some sort of his oblivion, his that he does not see this one coming, is always or has to be portrayed in a contrast. And this means that for King Duncan, the world is actually pretty much rosy. This is how he describes Macbeth's castle. I mean, you some sort of get the notion that King Duncan, this describes a beautiful day. There has been sunshine. There are birds singing and so on. Whereas inside the castle, this is the contrast. There people are preparing his assassinations, and this is again which brings us back to the beginning. The first scene, these dark clouds, and then the second scene. This is the entirely contrast, or the opposite end of it. You would assume, because there the dark clouds are over, as it seems, because the war is over. There is no more to fight for. The rebels have been beaten and pushed back and pushed aside, or whatever you have. So, and this driving force, this contrast, this mirroring, this indeed drives forward the story. It really helps you to fastly understand not only the entire plot, but as well as the opposite sides. I mean, imagine if you watch some movies where there is one hero. Let's say there is one Batman, and there is his opposite, let's say Joker, or you have Wayne, or whatever you have, Bane, or whatever you have. So the villain. Then then the story works always around this, that there is one hero, this is good, and there is one evil or more evil, and they some sort of are always standing the opposite side of each other. And sometimes, like it is in Batman Begins, the screenplay written by David Goyer, it is not apparent in the beginning. But however, this some sort of drives the story or the plot faster. You can cramp in it more information without exhausting someone. I mean, if you have here in Macbeth, this would be way more hideous, and this is something you get to know when you write your own screenplays, your own novels. If you have to explain every time why someone is the opposite part of you, this could become way too exhausting, or this is way too exhausting. And the best thing is to just show it. And in doing so, you can spare yourself a lot of explanation, or you can spare yourself a lot of descriptive effort. For example, I mean, we talked about, I mean, if you have to talk a great length about why King Duncan is a weak king, why he does not have any clue, well, this is probably, you would need a lot of time and resources. Whereas if you some sort of create your plot like in Shakespeare's Macbeth, where you have inside the castle people plotting his killing, and outside the castle, King Duncan with Banquo talks about the beautiful side of the castle, and that everything would be fine, and this is sunshine, this is birds are singing, everything appears to be beautiful. Then you can convey a lot of information just with this contrast. This means simply King Duncan does not know what is going on inside the castle. This is what you have some sort of put forth with little explanation. I mean, in the following scene, in the 6th scene, where King Duncan talks about the beauty of the castle, you have no clue what, or he does not even talk about, or you do not have to explain much that King Duncan is not aware of the danger, and people pretty much understand and get to know what is going on, the contrast of it. And this is what you have in other parts of the plot as well. I mean, right before Macbeth meets with King Duncan, he has these dark thoughts. He has these thoughts about honor here, or he has these thoughts about killing him, of disposing him, and then he meets King Duncan, and he's rather submissive. He talks about duty and honor, and this is again a contrast to his thoughts. And you can convey a lot of information just with these two contrasts, and of course a lot of thoughts, because some, especially in the movie or in film and movies, you rather show than tell. And the easiest way where you can convey a lot of information is actually through contrast. I mean, if you watch Batman or any other Marvel hero, you actually do not have to really talk about why is the Joker evil, why is Bane evil. I would even assume that someone who has no moral values or does not understand or has no clue about good and wrong will, despite the fact, will pretty much become aware of that Batman and, let's say, the Joker, that they are on the opposite ends of a worldview. So, and this is without explaining it. Why is the Joker evil? Without explaining it, why Bruce does what he does. Why does Bruce want to save Gotham and not destroy it like Ra's al Ghul and so on. So there's a lot of understanding through this, and this is something you can really portray easily with contrast, with pointing each other's scene at each other. So, or you can just call it mirroring. And then in Macbeth, before the murder of King Duncan, then again Macbeth some sort of ruminates about the consequences. What could or might come out of it? What could happen? And so on. This is again some sort of raises the tension. This is again to the contrast, because Macbeth is if you want, as well as an enemy to himself, to what he said about duty, about your honor, whom you bestow them to your king and father. So this is very throbbing, this contrast between someone who wants to do the right thing. This is what you have in Macbeth. He talks about he was only newly promoted. Shouldn't he be thankful? But then his ambition drives him. So this is again this contrast. You have two forces which rip these people apart, and this is some sort of the mechanism which goes through the entire Marvel franchise. You have it in Batman, these two forces. They are plainly always referred as good and evil. So you have sometimes the villain is tempted by evil. This is what you have in Batman, where Batman does evil or has to do evil in order to succeed, because ordinary means that do not work anymore. The contrast is always striking. And here at Macbeth you have this as well. So in the beginning up to the second act of the dagger scene, where you have always this back and forth. Should I do it or should I not do it? Should I walk it? And you always ruminate about the consequences. consequences. And then in the second act, the dagger, this pretty much is the end of it, or is the end of all these ruminations, because this is one goal, or you have no way back anymore, you have no return anymore. This is the thumb of the pilot, you have to go through it. So, and this is then, if you want, where Macbeth strides determinedly forward and kills King Duncan. This is, and in Macbeth, I would say this is really good, because you have the scene 1 as well as the scene 2, some sort of a mini plot where you have, with this back and forth, a rising tension, and the tension of the first half of the play is indeed the murder of King Duncan. This is the pinnacle. What happens thereafter? Macbeth goes nuts or goes mad, and then kills his friends, and this has then one last pinnacle, and this is in the end where he fights the rebels or people, some sort of abandon him. But this is indeed very interesting. And then the second act, despite the fact that Macbeth explains what happened, that he or goes through with it, he some sort of is still hesitant. He cannot look at the dead bodies. He cannot see what is done. He cannot eye what is done. So you have some sort of, again, this doubt, this rising tension. He was determined before that the dagger led his path. He walk through it, but then he's thoughtful, he's hesitant, he cannot see what he's done, he cannot look at what he's done. This is again something you would back, which leaves, you would say, which as well as makes him human. He is repentant and so on. However, but here we see in the first 2 acts, which I think is indeed a very great structure, or is brilliantly structured, where you can see how you should structure scenes, and Shakespeare does it in a very superb way. And this is, in order to sum it up, it is always to contrast those opposites. So King Duncan is this lamb, is this innocent lamb who does not see the wolf Macbeth approaching. So he is oblivious up to the last point, and this is always someone back and forth. And those scenes, they always portray the contrast, and they convey this theme and the perception without actually having to go through a great length to explain why this is so. This is what you would rather account in a novel, where structures is rather secondary, because in a novel you have time and space to talk about everything, to analyze everything. So structure is rather secondary. Maybe only important if you want to some sort of write a page turner. We will talk about that as well. However, but here at movie and theater, you really have to show rather than tell. This is what people always used to say. And here in Shakespeare, in the first 2 acts, you have really a superb structure where you always create the contrast. We always some sort of can make the point that this guy's Macbeth talks about duty but has dark thoughts. So you pretty much know this is gloomy, this is dark. However, we will continue our talking about this theme next week with Batman Begins and I hope that you all will join me again. Bye.